Bienvenido todos los Estados Unidos de América. I hope that was okay. This is Josh Halpern coming to you from the United States. Down there in Brazil, a shout out to E-Commerce Forum, the U.S. Commercial Service at the U.S. Consulate in Brazil. And thank you for joining us with our partners, Solucionet, Channel Engine, Avalara, and Digital River. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how do you set up and build your cross-border omnichannel e-commerce strategy? How do you sell outside of Brazil? So we're going to start with who I am, who we are collectively, and we're going to talk about how this isn't a trend. This is a definite ongoing strategy for the future, going outside your borders. We're going to talk about how you find your tribe, how you find your markets, and what channels to sell through. And then we're going to talk about Latin America, specifically with Solucionet. How do you go outbound and sell through marketplaces across Latin America? So who am I? My name is Josh Halpern. I'm a former U.S. Commercial Service Officer or U.S. diplomat. I served in the embassy in China for a number of years, running the e-commerce, logistics, cosmetics portfolios there. I then was returned back to the U.S. under the Obama administration to launch the e-commerce innovation lab to help U.S. companies go global through e-commerce. So we built a cohort of companies from fintech and digital marketing to logistics to payments so that we could understand how do you go global through cross-border e-commerce. I ultimately left and launched something called the Getting to Global Initiative, which is now also called the Grow Big Initiative, which is where we provide free services and tools to help you go global. And today, we're going to be talking about all the aspects of global. If you want to follow us, though, there's my contact information. You can always get in touch. So this is particularly around Getting to Global, the organization that I am partnered with that runs a full service market entry strategy for the U.S. If you want to come into the U.S., this is your landed solution for all the partners and ecosystems that you need. So there's offices for Getting to Global around the world, but predominantly we service a lot in the U.S. We've worked for lots of different companies, and we do continue to consult for both large and medium-sized retailers. And we have a free portal, again, growbig.org/programs. You can go in and you can map your own strategy across a lot of these different topics that we have here, okay? So I'm going to go into, we're going to talk about how this is not a trend, this is a transition for your business. Obviously, e-commerce is expanding. We have huge growth across the world, and e-commerce post-COVID is even more. I won't read all these, but you can take a look in your own language as they are translated. Then we're going to talk just quickly cross-border, right? So we're talking about huge opportunities. 5 billion internet users are now online, many who were not previously online, and many of the luxury goods shoppers that used to travel to buy product have now gotten very used to buying products online, and that transition is probably going to be here to stay, where people are still going to just be buying cross-border online. So you definitely want to be getting yourself acclimated to the cross-border solution set. So how do you usually go global? Traditionally now with a cross-border, you start out selling through your own website right there, of course, on the lower left. And then you start to invest higher in complexities. As you go global, you start to build marketplace strategies, and then you start to localize. That means taking your website now and your other channels and localizing them further. But we're going to talk a lot about that mid-market where you're starting to optimize your website for cross-border, and you're starting to deal with how do you deal with marketplaces. And then in some cases, people do fully integrate and go local, but there's a lot of value to continuing cross-border for quite some time. So again, who's buying? 50% of traffic on the largest retailers are coming from, by 2025, cross-border. That means most retailers are now selling cross-border, and most consumers, as you see here in some of the stats, are buying cross-border. So I think it's really interesting to see one of the biggest things that are coming out of COVID. Retailers are saying, as you see there, the biggest challenge they face is the economic crisis coming up. But the biggest opportunity is selling online. So take a look at that. Now, universal steps for market entry. The way we map this out, we usually start with a readiness assessment. We sit down with you, we go through what are the key pain points you have, what are the optimal kind of value propositions that you uniquely have in contrast to your competitors. And then we talk about market discovery. Which are the right markets for you based on your value proposition? I'll talk about that in a second. And then we're going to be talking about market entry planning. How do you plan all the aspects of your global entry into a new market, logistics, payments, your digital marketing, content localization, etc. And then we talk about legal and regulatory compliance. So do you have products that are going to require local registration? Is it a health product? Is it a skincare? Is it something basically you put in or on your body that requires regulation? If so, you want to make sure you comply. In certain markets, when you go cross-border, you may actually be beneficial. It may be beneficial for you to go cross-border direct to consumers versus wholesale importation because of certain things like animal testing, for example, in China. Then we talk about product planning. We're going to build a whole roadmap. And then how do you finance it? Are there certain government incentives for you to export from, let's say, APACs in Brazil or other places like pro-Chile, pro-Colombia, etc.? So you want to be looking at that, and we'll work on that with you. And then we do some consumer research. Who is your tribe? We're going to talk about that. How do you identify them? How do you localize your brand to resonate with that tribe? And then what's the ecosystem of the tech stack that you need? Are you going to be fine with your existing website, or are you going to want to adapt or re-platform for a certain market? Obviously, we talk Shopify, we talk BigCommerce, we can talk Commerce Cloud, Adobe. We also talk about VTEX, for example. Could you take your whole website and localize it into the United States and Canada? And then we obviously want to look at your payments process, merchant of record model. Are you going to be able to sell direct to a consumer in the US without setting up a bank account there? Can you comply with taxes and regulatory issues? We've got a great presentation with Avalara in this series that's going to talk a lot about that. Also with Digital River, merchant of record model. Okay, so steps for that market entry. We're talking about now the customer service. One of the biggest things that you need to think about is customer service, because cross-border shoppers, while they take longer to acquire, the lifetime value of a cross-border shopper, if they like you, is exponentially greater because they've already trusted you once and you've delivered. So you've got to make sure that customer experience after they purchase a product, can they return it? When can they fix it? Can they get some support on how to use it? All those things have to be there. And there's some interesting case studies on how you can do that incrementally. And then, of course, we talk about building your brand further with digital marketing. So again, interesting aspects here, but let's talk about finding your tribe. What does that mean? So many of you obviously do very deep dives into who your customer is or whom your customer or your consumer would be ideally in your given market. These are some criteria that you might use. Do they care a lot about how fast you deliver it? Do they care about the quality? Are they concerned about, kind of the customer service? Can they return it? What's the age group of that? Are they in a certain time in their life? Vis-a-vis, are they pregnant? Are they going to be having kids? Or are they single? Are they elderly? Where are they in their life? So building that profile, then you want to take a look at take a simple sheet out, a simple piece of paper, and you start writing, okay, here are the criteria for my domestic market. Here is the parallel in what I think would be in another market. Now, in a lot of cases, that's the same, but in certain cases, it won't be. A certain purchaser of certain products in the US may be very different when you're looking at a Japanese consumer, Chinese, Russian, etc. So you've got to be taking that into effect and then start drawing that out on your matrix and then weighting them. What's the importance? How much does this aspect of their lives or this part of their customer profile, how much of that is critical for their purchasing? So I'll give you a case study. I work a lot with Revolve, Kai Lee, a good friend of mine, and I went and interviewed him on value proposition. And one of the things he said was Revolve, when they started out in the US, very big value proposition on speed of delivery. Went into China. They had huge problems with getting into China in the sense that they could not deliver and compete with a 90-minute delivery from Jingdong or Alibaba. So they focused a lot more on their selection, built out 500,000 SKUs, very shallow inventory, the ability to provide variety and send it out very quickly. But they could never compete with the speed, so they had to adjust their marketing to focus on their product selection. So take a look at things that you need to do to adjust your value proposition for a given market. Now let's talk about it. Finding your market. Use free tools. There are tons of free tools out there, like, for example, the Google Analytics, Google Market Finder tools. You can take a look at keywords, and you can also optimize. Remember, in the US, keywords are going to be more expensive in general, same with Canada. So you want to make sure you're choosing the right ones when you're going global into certain markets. I'm not going to show this video here, but I'll put a link somewhere for you. Okay, so after that, look at Facebook. Facebook lookalike audiences, for example. Facebook has a ton of tools to figure out who your right consumer is in a given market. Facebook lookalike audiences, if you upload a certain amount of emails of profiles of your current customers, and then you say, great, tell me the similar type of profile for another market, Facebook will actually do that. And as scary as that is, it can be very useful now that when you're on the merchant selling side. Some of it works better than others in different countries, but it's certainly a great place to start. Again, that's that Google Market Finder where you can search for your criteria and your target audience. When you do find that, you're going to map something out like this, right? How attractive is that market from a opportunity cost? But then how much do you have a right to win? What's your value proposition? Can you deliver on the value proposition? Can you adjust your value proposition for that market? Or are you pretty much looking at, let's say you have a very heavy product, highly regulated, physically heavy to ship. You may not want to kind of go into those markets, even though they seem attractive, right? China is often a common one for people to say, hey, China, huge market, huge opportunity, but how hard is it really now to cut through the noise from a marketing perspective when every other brand is out there selling into China and battling it out? So now get ready for change. Is your organization ready for the change that's required? You're going to be talking about the impacts on your team. Is your team already stretched very thin? Do they have language and cultural skills? Are they young enough, let's say, or interested enough in traveling and setting up an office in another country like the US? Do they speak the right language, etc.? Impacts on the supply chain. Where is your product? Can you get your product into the market? Definitely check in with our session with Alba Wheels Up on how do you get your product into the market, but are you ready for that? And then the impacts on customer service. Do you have customer service set up? You don't necessarily have to have a service for 24 hours a day, but you have to have an email set up. You have to have people being able to answer response in English, for example. So, and the impacts on the long-standing relationships. Do you already have distributors in the US and Canada and or elsewhere in Latin America? Will selling direct to your consumers impact the relationship? Will you have channel conflict? If so, there are ways to work around that where you can actually create a hybrid model where you sell into a country, but then when it comes time to fulfill, your distributor locally can do the fulfillment for you and take on a little bit more of that margin. So here's a quick adjustment, right? When you're mapping out how long it takes to get into that market and really build your brand, the blue line here, the blue line is kind of how long it might take domestically. Always remember it's going to be extended a lot more than you think when you're first getting started in a given market. So be ready for that when you're looking at the return on investment and you're pitching this product either to this strategy. When you're pitching this strategy to your VCs or your board members or your CEO, you're going to have to adjust those timelines and the culture has to be ready to accept that this is a long-term play. Selecting the right online channels. Obviously, you've got 4 main channels. You're talking about your website. You're talking about your marketplaces. 50% or more of cross-border revenue for merchants in Asia, for example, in Europe, come from marketplaces. Not too dissimilar, increasingly so now in the US, where marketplaces are starting to get more and more sales from overseas. So people are getting used to that, right? So again, a lot of different data points here on social. Obviously, a lot of opportunity on social to build your connection with your consumer. Instagram, a big one in the US. Of course, TikTok growing exponentially too. Okay, so let's talk about your different channels. Your own website. If nothing else, take a screenshot of this one. These are all the aspects of your website that really have to be localized. So you have to have local currency. You have to have local province or states in the US. You have to have local kind of checkout and duties and taxes. All these things have to be taken care of at the point of checkout and on your site. But there are plugins, whether it's a Digital River purchase situation, a Zonos or others. There are plugins, a Global, all these different solutions are out there to optimize. But you've got to make sure your website is optimized. You can do also some very simple things with translation. You can sort of use the Google Translator, but it's probably better to do some localized, really custom human being translation. You can also have a welcome mat. We did this with a company where we just created a welcome mat in a local language using a Just Uno plugin. People from the US can come to your site, see something in English, and then know that they're comfortable. You continue shopping because you'll have the checkout, you'll have the currency, you'll have things optimized for them in that the rest of the website. So it's a great way to start out. Some examples of international checkout kind of welcome mats. These are integrated into the site. Again, the Zonos welcome mat. All these things are pretty straightforward, and they create an instant kind of internationalization for your website. You want to make sure the currency when you're dealing with these plugins, the key is to have things like, for example, the rounded numbers. So you don't want to translate your currencies from one currency into dollars and still have 0.57 cents, right? You want to make sure that it rounds up. Certain plugins do that for you so that the consumer isn't looking at some weird number and saying, wait, this site is clearly not ready for international, right? Duties and taxes, I'm going to let Avalera talk about that on the presentation. Please come into that session when they're up. And of course, the cross-border experience, we talked about clear written out return policies. Can you return it? How quick can you return it? Do you get your duties and taxes back when you return it? So all those things, right? Number two, marketplaces. So marketplaces are everywhere. They're one of the easiest and best ways to start getting into a new market. Amazon's one of them, eBay and others. There are lots of them. So do your research and then search on those marketplaces to see if products like yours exist. A couple of sites, of course, in the US, half of online sales are happening now on marketplaces. 90% are happening in China on marketplaces. And of course, there's Amazon, Walmart, eBay, and Etsy are big marketplaces in the US. Now you got to understand them. So there's the broad-based ones, the Amazons, of course, and Walmarts, and then there's the Etsys and the Wayfairs and Clarks. These are specialty verticals. Depending on the product vertical, you may want to go just to one versus the other. And of course, we know the international ones that you know outside of Brazil, and of course, Mercado Libre in Brazil as well. Lots of different ones that you got to be aware of. Do your research on a couple of apps. Take a look at Seller App or Jungle Scout. Those already are pulling in data from these marketplaces, so you can do research on, are there similar products to yours? What are the price points? What are the volumes they're selling? Because what better way to know if your product would sell on Amazon France, Amazon US, etc., than if you can look for a similar product and say, wait, they're selling left-handed widgets at the same price point as mine in this market. I think there's an opportunity here for us to compete. So a case study on marketplace incremental entry. When I was working in China at the embassy, we had a company that's a US brand called Concept 2 Rowing Machines. They wanted to get into China. China did not do rowing other than the Dragon Boat Festival. They weren't in their houses rowing at the time. But they said, hey, let's give it a try. There's a mild growth in home exercising. They listed their products on Amazon. In this case, when Amazon they had their .cn site, they no longer have it. But they listed it there even though they were going to fulfill from the US. Once people started to buy it a little bit, they started building out programs and marketing it. They marketed it to local government. They marketed it to kindergartens. They had people on the ground just shipping in a few of them just to test and do some PR. They started to see an uptick, and that's when they created their own domestic China-based website. And then when they did that, they realized their product in particular requires a lot of customer service, a lot of aftermarket care. So they had to slowly hire a team locally in China, train them on the product, sent over a trainer for it. And now they could have their own very small incremental way to do customer service in China. And then they started building in cross-border payment solutions that were now domestic in orientation with QR codes, etc., and built that payments gateway and all the other facets of their cross-border model. But they started with marketplaces. So modern marketplace management, today's world, you cannot simply manage by having a team that's focused on Amazon, a team on Walmart, a team on Etsy, etc. You really need a integration or a syndication. So there's companies like Channel Engine. There's also a bunch of others, but Channel Engine, I really like them. We've started to work with them. They will help syndicate your products across different marketplaces so that you can control the products you offer. You can have, it's easier for following the different rules for the IT people. Obviously, your uniform insights, so you can pull feedback from the different marketplaces, and then you can actually adjust your pricing as you go. So you can reduce your costs or you can increase your costs all at once across all the marketplaces or by marketplace. You can increase basically all the kind of integrations both to the marketplaces but also backwards. So your product information management is much more seamless. Your ERP, your enterprise resource planning, all your WMS, if you want. You probably have these all translated right now. Warehouse management system, your 3PLs, so the logistics provider, all of that integrates into the central hub and then goes out to all these different marketplaces. So you can have one team managing one platform with one multi omni-channel distribution of product and pull it all, the product listing information all over and translate for you. So excellent solution and really the way to do it. Now you're looking at marketplaces in the US, of course, here's some of them. All of these get integrated through that channel engine service, also through Canada and Mexico. Again, integration through channel engine. So you could sell on all these marketplaces through a single hub and syndicate your product listings and deal with your pricing and your logistics and fulfillment all through that. So logistics partners all across the world. I really like them. But again, take a look at all those types of services. They're called basically syndication or product management across marketplaces, omni-channel services, okay? I'll give you a quick visual of what that looks like. So you got that, obviously shipping all throughout. And this is on a single dashboard, and then you can adjust your pricing. Colors, descriptions, right? So that as things change or your inventory changes, you can be aware of it. The biggest things I say is if you've got 5 orders coming off of Amazon, 1,000 off of Instagram, etc., how do you know your inventory is synced up and ready and you can still fulfill? You don't want to have orders coming in that you can't fulfill, right? So that's kind of how this all works. I won't kill you with that, but I think that's really an interesting service. Social commerce, obviously, tons of people on social commerce. In the US, Instagram's really big, and now Instagram shoppable media is huge. And a lot of you may say, I'm not sure if we can actually sell on Instagram cross-border because the checkout in Instagram is only for US, let's say US companies that have US tax ID, US currencies, US inventory. Instagram's expanding that service, but actually here's the secret hidden news. US companies in general, a majority of them are not opting to use Instagram in-app purchase because they want to control the data. If somebody comes through their Instagram social feed and purchases a product, Instagram owns that consumer unless they plug them back out to their own website. So at the point of purchase on Instagram, click the people back out to your own website. And again, if you've done the optimization for your own website for cross-border, you can now deliver cross-border with that same experience, but still leverage your audience on Instagram in the US or Canada, etc., or elsewhere. Now, we're going to kick it to Solucionet. Solucionet is going to be talking to us about Latin American market entry. How do you sell across multiple channels across Latin America? So again, I'm Josh Halpern. This is the Grow Big Initiative, and I'm checking over to Solucionet to kick it off right now. Thank you so much for joining.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Josh, so much for inviting us today. My name is Ilanit Kesefman, and I'll be giving you a brief overview on Latin markets and the main points you need to consider in order to enter. To start, we need to do our market research. We need to understand, according to the country we wish to enter, what are the different marketplaces, competitors, selling options we have. And we need to understand that according to our products, according to our industry, to see what are different players on that specific country. Of course, to buy online, there's different solutions, and we need to look for the best for us. In some opportunities, it's good for also to be on different marketplaces, maybe some of the top 3, top 5 marketplaces on that specific country. Or if we decide to have our own site, also be part in another marketplace as well. This will also help us with our strategy. We need to understand, if we decide to build our own site, what's our short-term strategy and what's our long-term strategy. This will be relevant for us to decide which platform is better according to what we want, to what we need in that specific country. And of course, different solutions will provide, like logistics on billing opportunities, and we need to consider those in order to define what's the best thing to implement to us. And we need to see some numbers here on Latin markets. Last year on the Commerce 2021, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil were 3 of the top 6 countries with the highest growth, over 26%, while the world average was over 16%. So, of course, with the pandemic, everything accelerated and the market is in a growth point, but we have every year different buyers getting online. And for example, in Argentina, we have more than 20 million buyers online. And of course, this is the moment to enter these markets and be there. It's also really relevant to understand that as fast we do it, the better, right? But to see how we do it and how we build that strategy, we need to understand what are the different options we have, but how those buyers actually prefer, what are the categories they choose to buy, for example, fashion or electronics, and which are those that are actually on a growing moment, and we also can consider to be part as well. But of course, we need to understand the reasons for them to buy online. For example, the benefits of home delivery or time saving. And of course, to build that strategy, we need to understand the incentives they have to buy online. And those could be like free shipping or discounts on the regular price. And we need to consider those while we do our strategy, because we need to offer that for them when we decide to land. And how we do that strategy, we need to have a plan. We need to understand the pattern, what things worked before on different marketplaces or different countries, understand as well what's the possibilities we have in the specific country we want to land, and understand the perspective, the position of our brand, if we have one, and of course deploy as well. These 5 things will be really relevant for us to determine how we're going to do it, how we're going to land on a Latin market. And for that, we also need to understand the wholesale process. We need to understand that the pre-sale is as important, as relevant as the post-sale. We need to understand how we are going to make that potential buyer find us. When they do, what are they going to look for? How's our products going to look like? What information are we going to provide to them? And after that, when effectively we sell that product, how we're going to send that to them, how it's going to be our service or experience, like the whole experience for that customer, how it's going to be. We need to consider that for the strategy, because we need to build our process, our teams, our whole strategy according to that. For this, we have different pillars. We have the offer, the traffic, service, scalability. We need to have those in mind before we define that, like for defining that strategy. And of course, we have on media, in media, purchase media. We need to have this in mind as well for that strategy. But what does this mean? For example, on cataloging. This is absolutely relevant. This is the first time the buyer is going to look for our products. We need to give them the good impression. It's not only the way we need to understand that, like the titles, the descriptions, the information available, the pictures we show them of our products. Of course, we have to do it the best we can. But according to the different market and the different country you want to land, you need to know the specifics of that country on how they pronounce, like they know a product, like what are the slang words or the colloquial words. Like you need to know how to create that title according to the way our buyers search for that product. And that's really important because we need to understand the specifics of those potential buyers. And of course, these are really relevant, like titles, the opportunities we give them, the different colors and variations of our products. But of course, we need to make it as complete as possible. We need to give them the whole information. And of course, while we start selling, and then we have, of course, questions of our clients, we will start understanding what they need to know, what they are looking for. And that's also some relevant information we will then add to our listings, probably, to have future clients look for that information directly on the listing. And of course, the categories, like we have to make sure that it's not only going to be the best listing we can do, but it's going to be actually on the categories where our potential buyers going to look for us. And then, of course, the quality of the pictures are absolutely relevant. As many as we can give, and the details we can give, it's going to be better for the whole experience that we talked before. When actually the client, the customer gets that product, and it's not different for what he imagined when he checked our listing and the information we provide. So that's actually really, really relevant as well. And of course, the description, what information we give on the whole, the characteristics, on the possibilities, the selling options we give them, the information, it's going to be absolutely relevant. It doesn't matter which marketplace. This is really relevant for us to consider and have a good strategy on how we're going to show them who we are, how we're going to build our products and our brand. And for this, it's really relevant. We have Mercado Libre as one of the best marketplaces here in Latam, the number one actually. And this is a metric we need to consider, but not only for them, because it's relevant for any marketplace, because it's gonna provide the whole experience and it's gonna make us know that we actually care about each step of the process of the sale. And we will have to take care of claims or cancellations or handling time. These three measures are absolutely relevant for online buyers, and this will affect our future sales if we do not do it correctly and if we do not change things on time. So we need to consider this while we build our strategy. For this as well, it's really relevant. Like I mentioned before, it will affect selling conversions. But not only in Mercado Libre, like I said, customers' review will come one way or another. It can be through Google reviews or through the marketplace or complaining in social media. We will have that customer feedback. So we need to make sure that we try to make the best experience for each of them on every product we sell. And how do we do this? Of course, we need to have our teams trained. We need a team, and we need to understand that the e-commerce solution is as important as our offline solutions. And we need to train them to be and give a solution accordingly to those buyers, to those preferences for those buyers and how they want to receive the information and the service. And of course, we need to measure time. We need to measure our answers. We need to understand the process. We need to understand what they need. And we need to keep working on that all the time. We need to keep improving what we do and how we do it by measuring as well. But then we have, of course, the questions on our products. And we also need to understand at what stage each of those buyers is. It's not the same if it's just a minor detail they need to understand, and then they will probably buy our product, that if they do not understand anything on what we are selling and they need more information or they are just looking, we need to adapt. We need to provide a really good answer. The quality of our answer is as relevant as how fast we can give that answer. Of course, time saving, like I said before, it's one of the key points we consider online. But then if you do not answer what I was asking, or it's not a question that actually has a proper answer, I may not buy, even if you did it in the fastest way you could. So we have to keep this in mind and make our teams also understand this. And for this, we also get to understand different type of questions we receive. It could be technical questions. It could be operational questions. It's not the same. It's not the same way we have to answer and the information we need to provide in each case. So for that, our team has to be trained as well to answer those type of questions. And like we said, time is key, but it's also relevant to understand what's the platform, how's the way that customer is going to reach us. We need to build in our strategy the different options for them and how they are going to get to talk to us somehow. And we need to understand that it's not the same on real time that like a question on the listing. And for that, even though time is key. We need to have our teams trained, but also provide them with every tool we could. Like, for example, the most frequently asked questions, we can pre-prepare those questions and have them at hand for them to answer right away. Or at the same time, we can actually give that information and improve our listings when we actually determine what's the information most relevant for that type of buyers. And then the specifications, like we said, for technical questions, it's different. We need to have the product specification at hand. Maybe we cannot add everything to the listing, but we need to have a team trained to answer whatever they need to know. And then, of course, this is absolutely relevant and different from online to offline. We can have our products selling like 24/7. And for that, we need to have our teams on our service at the most extended time possible. We need to be available to answer or take care of our sales at most times. So it can be maybe during the weekends, or we can extend our time at nights. But as much as we can do that, the better, because we could have a better conversion of our sales. And of course, like we said before, we need to understand the way we have to spell. We need to communicate. It doesn't matter which platform. We need to understand how to talk to that buyer and give them the best option, the best experience to them, and empathy we could. After the sale, like we said before, pre-sale and post-sale are as relevant. We have the opportunity to keep helping our buyer. Before it was a potential buyer, but now it's a customer. And now we get the chance to keep helping them with whatever they may need to have this whole experience as the best that we can provide. But then, of course, like we said, it's really important for us to invest. Why? How do we advertise and why we need to do it? Because we will try to get to that target customer we want, the target market we are looking for. And for that, it doesn't matter which marketplace you are, or if you have your own site, you need to make a strategy for them to find you, for them to choose you. And for that, you need to keep understanding how they perform online, how do they look, how do they search, what do they need, what does for them work, and we need to keep track of that and keep learning and keep following the KPIs and the information to make that investment the best possible. And for that, we have, for example, in Mercado Libre, like we said before, the best or one of the best marketplaces in Latam. We have solutions for brand formats and performance. It's not the same, and for our strategy will not be the same if we provide, if we need to position our brand that a product. Of course, both will help, but we need to decide what we do first. And then for this, we have different solutions also on Mercado Libre on the platform. It's called Mercado Ads. We have trade marketing, for example, and here's how it can look like on the banners and everything. And we need to understand the impact and the visibility of each of these solutions. We have also the audience display native that will reach different type of possible buyers. And then we have the audience deals that will try to focus more on specific products, on specific buyers. And then we have, of course, the performance that will help us, these product ads. These will be specific for our already products selling online on our account on Mercado Libre. And we will try to use this strategy to position that product specific, but then at the same time, the account. This will help us, and we will have to keep, again, track of the performance of that investment to keep improving, to keep making it better and actually having more benefits from doing so. Here are some numbers on the solution and how it's performing, how it's been the last years. And here how it works. We can also get to use product ads to show our product when a potential buyer is looking for our competitors. We want to show and compare our products to theirs. And then make it, of course, according to our whole listing and the quality of the pictures and the sailings we have and the solutions, the selling solutions we provide and the benefits. That will also help us to position the product and the specific product on our account on the marketplace. And it's really relevant. It will definitely help us sell more and position the account, like I said before, and also help us improve the sale of different products, not only that one, because we will keep doing so. And I said, KPIs, absolutely relevant in e-commerce. Here are just some of those that you have to listen and have in mind that you will need to check. ROAS, click per impressions. You have, of course, conversions, like I said before, how many transactions you're doing, like the wholesale. You need to learn from these KPIs, from these metrics, to understand what's the best strategy and how to keep improving that strategy to sell, of course, more online. But okay, for LATAM entry, what do we need to consider? Of course, it will vary according to the country you wish to enter, like I said before. But of course, you have to the constitution of the company and define a few things. You have to do the legal certification. You will definitely need to register the company in different organizations to be able to actually sell in that country. Then you will need a bank account. And of course, after you have all that, you need to start then doing implementation of your own site or go into the marketplace and create your account. And this is really relevant for that strategy as well. Like I mentioned before, this implies a lot of time as well. So we need to understand when we decide exactly when we're going to be able to actually sell online in that country. And that will definitely be a key to understand when do we have to start and what do we want and what do we need to actually do it as fast as possible, right? And just to tell you a little bit of us and how we can help you with this LATAM markets entry. We are Solucionet. We help different companies to accelerate that growth online. We can help you from start to end on the different strategies, on the different implementations, on the business case you need to have to actually get to sell online. These are some of our main services right now. We have the whole marketplace, pillar marketing, on the e-shops, and of course the marketplace as a service. Like I mentioned before, in Latin markets, Mercado Libre, Amazon are the two most important marketplaces here, and we can help you with the whole process for you to create your account, to actually get the products and understand how to do that pre-sale and post-sale as complete as possible. In case you prefer to have your own site, we can definitely help you define which is the best platform, what's according to your solutions and your systems, and the information and the logistics billing that you need to provide, that you want to provide, what's the best strategy and how to do it, develop it, and actually implement, and then, of course, keep it alive. We can also help you with marketplace as a service, which is for you to have your own marketplace according to where you are. Like I said, marketing will be key. We need to invest. We need to have a good strategy here. It has to be the same view of your brand and everything in every point of your selling points on social media, on the marketplace, on your own site. You need to get to that target market. So we will definitely help you do it with that as well. And of course, keep track of everything, keep doing the analytics, try to follow the KPIs, understand, analyze, do the market research, and try to keep understanding how to improve that strategy from one point to the other. Here are some of our results, and then some of our clients for you to know, and of course, some partners that we work with. And that was it from my side. Of course, please feel free to reach us through any point, and of course through our Grow Big partners. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Solucionet. It is always a pleasure. You have so much important and in-depth knowledge that we all can benefit from. And again, if you want to follow more information, you can go to growbig.org/programs. You can go into our platform for free, create an account, and then you can access all of these roadmaps and this information right there. It is in English right now, but we will be translating it as we go. And again, get in touch with me if you'd like, right there. Any of this information, follow me. I'm also the Vanbassador. I travel in a mobile video studio, interviewing brands on how they're staying local and going global. So you can check us out on Vanbassador or on youtube.com/growbig.org or youtube.com/Vanbassador. Either way, also on LinkedIn. And we will see you out there on the road. Have a wonderful rest of your day at the e-commerce forum. And thanks again, the U.S. Commercial Service and the U.S. Consulate. Obrigado.